So this lesson was only 3 units long. The first one was we spent a whole lesson just what quadrants do these inverse functions belong in. Then we did one where we evaluate them. That's like kind of the bulk of it, draw a triangle and all that. And then we did one where we used the calculator and we did the word problem. So the odd ones are in which quadrants? 1 and 4. So they're all odd except for cosine and secant. So all of these ones are in 1 and 4. Where are the two even ones? 1 and 2. Good. And we spent a whole lesson just on that. Did you shut the door for us? Oh, girls, got it. And then the next lesson, which is what the bulk of this is evaluating these. So drawing a triangle, labeling your triangle, figuring out your answer. So this one is negative. That means it cannot be quadrant 1. The other option for sine is 4. Good. Sine is the y value. So the -1/2 goes there. That means the other side, square root of 3/2. This is your quote unquote work, is labeling a triangle. So what is the angle that goes across from the 1/2? That's the little one. Pi/6. Good. Now your answer is not pi/6. It's how much you rotated to get there, and you have to go backwards. So your answer is negative pi/6. Good job. That's it. Look, we're just going to do that over and over and over again. You're going to feel like you keep writing the same thing over and over. All right. Cosine, and it's negative, so it cannot be quadrant 1. This time, good. It's quadrant 2. Bless you. Cosine, bless you, is the x value. So that goes right here. That means the other side is 1/2. So again, across from 1/2 is pi/6. But you're not in quadrant 1. So your answer is not pi/6. It's how far you rotated to get there. Now the denominator still has to be 6, but kind of let your instinct kick in. It'll be 5 pi/6. You guys have filled in a lot of unit circles and you're good at that. So I mean, I think you're gonna know, like you're gonna know it's not like, you'll be able to tell if it's wrong. All right, now this one is a little tricky, I will grant you, because the 1 kind of makes you think of the circle, but for tangent, it's not. You're still gonna have a triangle. What are the sides of your triangle so that you end up with 1? Good, they have to be the same thing. So it's your square root of 2/2 triangle. And so your angle is pi/4. And if you're in quadrant 1, then that's just your answer. You didn't rotate far enough for it to be anything different. Go ahead. Yes, cotangent of 1 is also pi/4 because it's the same triangle. X/y instead of y/x, but either way it's 1. Now, if it's -1, you'd be in the 4th quadrant and be negative pi/4. It's going to be a circle. Yeah. All right, this is positive, so we are in quadrant 1. Sine is the y value, so that's where your square root of 3/2 goes. That means the other side is 1/2. So what is your pi angle, amount of rotation, across from square root of 3/2? Good, that's the big one, so pi/3. And if you're in quadrant 1, that is just your answer.
You need to draw the arrow.
No, I'm just doing that to illustrate. No, the arrow is not part of what's worth points. That's not your word. All right, this one, arcsecant. I want to reciprocate this. Which trig function is your reciprocal of secant? Cosine, good job. So it's arc cosine -1/2. You just flip it over. There were a couple like this on the bingo. Remember bingo we played? So what quadrant are we in if cosine and it's -2? Good, quadrant 2. Cosine is the x value. So that means the other side, square root of 3/2, and that means your angle is pi/3. Answer is not pi/3 though. It's how much you rotated to get there. It's good, 2 pi/3. It has to be something over 3. So 2 pi/3. Cool, we had an aha moment. Did you get your haircut? Well, I like it. Yeah. Yeah, it just worked right here. We got 2 pi over 3. No, you need to flip it. So if it's arcsecant, the reciprocal of secant is cosine. The reciprocal of -2 is -1/2. Here, let's jump down to 14 and I'll show you. What's the reciprocal of cosecant? Sine. Yeah, if it's secant or cosecant, we're going to need to do the reciprocal. Now, if you split square root of 2, it's going to be square root of 2 over 2. You are going to remember because it's undoable otherwise. There's no other way. Like you're going to have to flip it over. Now that's positive. So what quadrant are we in? 1. It's your square root of 2 over 2 triangle. And so what is your angle? Yeah, pi over 4. And is that your answer or is it something different? Yeah, that's just your answer, pi over 4. I mean, do you know what arcsecant of -2 would be? I don't. You need to have something. Listen, because you have to have a good attitude about this. There's only so many options. Okay. You have to have a 1/2, a square root of 2 over 2, or a square root of 3 over 2. That's it. Those are the only choices. So if it doesn't say one of those, you're going to have to flip it. Like it has to be one of those 3 things. You have 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, and square root of 3 over 2. That's it. That's the whole world is that. That's all that you've got. So if it doesn't say that, you have to make it be that. Here, for example, this one. Do you see how it's not 1/2 square root of 2 over 2 or square root of 3 over 2? All right, so we got to figure it out then. So it is one of those 3 things. Off to the side here, and I'll figure out where the negative goes in a second. It's going to be 1/2 over square root of 3 over 2. Now, I've been putting these on the board for you, but I can't do that now because you're going to take a test. Do you see how this would reduce to be this? Because what's going to cancel? Yeah, the 2's. Okay, now I'll figure out where the negative goes in a second. I'm not sure which one of those is going to be negative. Which quadrant is this going to be in? 4, good. Tangent is y over x. If you want to label it, you don't have to, but I'm just trying to illustrate it. So 1/2 is the y, square root of 3 over 2 is the x. Then you can decide which one gets the negative. So which one gets the negative in that? Yeah, the 1/2. So what's the angle, your reference angle? Is pi over 6. And I heard somebody say the final answer over there. Your final answer is -pi over 6. Good job. Because you went backwards to get there. These quadrants don't even exist. Remember, it's like the bridge is washed out. You can't get to the other side. Oh, yeah, because there's only so many answers. You have a very finite number of possible answers. So you're going to get the same thing over and over again. Good. So do you see how these 2's would cancel and you would get 1 over square root of 3? That rationalizes to be square root of 3 over 3. So here, let's jump down to this one. And I'm going to go back and get this one, but you guys keep asking questions. And I'm like, here, let me do the one that answers your question. Again, I'm not worrying about the negative. I'll figure that out later. To get square root of 3, it's going to have to be square root of 3 over 2 over 1/2. Do you see why? Because what's going to happen? Yeah, 2's cancel. You get square root of 3 over 1, which is square root of 3. Again, I'll deal with the negative in a second. Now that again is going to be quadrant 4. But cotangent is what over what? X over y. So no, you're good. You're awake and talking to me. All right. And again, one is one way and one's the other. So you got to be careful. So your x is your square root of 3 over 2. Your y is 1/2. That's the one that's going to be negative. Gosh, is that not the exact same triangle that's literally right above it? Yeah, you're going to get the same thing over and over again. And so again, your answer is -pi over 6. Don't be worried if you get the same answer twice. In fact, you should be like, okay, I'm probably right because there are only so many problems I can give you. It's very, very limited. All right, let's go back and get the one I skipped. What quadrant is that in since it's positive? 1. And what's your, you probably almost answer this one without drawing a triangle, but even if you're like, hey, I can answer this without drawing a triangle. Remember, I'm going to give you points for drawing a triangle. So just as you're drawing it, go, hey, she's giving me points for this. Okay. And what is our angle for that one? Yeah, pi over 4, and that is just your answer. All right, now these next ones, you're going to start with the inside and work your way out, like order of operations, basically. This is positive, so we're going to be in quadrant 1, but this is not on the unit circle, so you are back to SOHCAHTOA, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, etc., and all of that. So tangent is what over what? Opposite over adjacent. Now listen, you can do Pythagorean theorem and get that other side if you want to. But look at the outside part. What does it say? Tangent. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Do you see how that happened? They cancel out. So for this one, it's negative. We're going to be in the second quadrant. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And you don't need, you can do the Pythagorean theorem, but it's going to be useless work because the outside of this says cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. So you don't need that other side. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, hypotenuse. Yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Good catch. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Thank you. Geez, that was horrible. I can't believe I messed that up. So these canceled out. Now looking at this one, it doesn't work that way when the arc one is on the outside because those are very, very restricted to what quadrants they can be in. So just as a heads up, we're actually going to have 2 triangles on this one. If you're like, hey, we didn't do one like that. You did. It was in the classwork. You just don't remember because it was a week ago, right? What quadrant is 5/4 in? There. And that should be your first clue. Hey, I'm going to need another triangle because are any of the arc ones, the inverse ones in quadrant 3? No. Okay. Now your reference angle is pi over 4. You can't ever change the denominators. They're going to just match. And so what are both sides? Square root of 0/2, but they're both negative. Sine is the y value. I realize they're the same, but it's this one. So this part equals negative square root of 2/2. So what we are trying to do now is arc sine of negative square root of 2/2. You're going to get the exact same triangle, but like flipped into a different quadrant. You basically just have to pick which quadrant it's in. That's really the biggest thing here is what quadrant are we in? So good. Okay, perfect. Why 4 before I could even ask? Because it's sine. Good. So, oh my gosh, Miss Cole, it looks like you're just writing the same thing over and over again. Sure did. I sure did. It is the same thing over and over again. Your answer, you have to rotate backwards to get there, is negative pi over 4. You're just going to write the same thing over and over again. There are so few choices. There are so few choices for what you can put. Your answers are very, very limited. We'll do one more and then I'll give you a halfway break. All right. What quadrant is 4/3 in? 3. Good. Just as a heads up, you're going to have 2 triangles for this one. And the fact that it's in quadrant 3 should be your big heads up because none of the arc ones, none of the inverse ones can be in quadrant 3. So you're going to have another triangle. All right. Reference angle is pi over 3. What goes across from that? Yep. Square root of 3/2. So this side is a half, and they are both negative. Basically, at that point, all you have to do is figure out what quadrant you're supposed to be in. This said cosine. Cosine is the x, so it's negative a half. So we're now trying to do arc cosine negative a half. If you don't want to write that part, you don't have to. I'll be able to see it in your triangle. I'm just doing that because I'm doing the problem in front of everyone. What quadrant is cosine in when it's arc cosine? Good. So just draw the exact same triangle reflected up into quadrant 2. So this is pi over 3. It's the same. You can't change it. It's the same. But your answer is not pi over 3. It's how much you rotated to get there, which is 2 pi over 3. You are just writing the same thing over and over. That's all that it is. And then your answer is how much you rotated. So looking at the next one, that is not on the unit circle. And so, are you okay? So we're back to SOHCAHTOA, so adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse. I'm gonna put the 4/1, because if you're gonna do like opposite over adjacent or whatever have you, you have to have a fraction. It's in quadrant 1 because that is positive. And we're doing cosecant. So we'll talk you through this nice and slow. Cosecant is the reciprocal of which one? Sine. Perfect. We're there so far. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is going to be hypotenuse over opposite. That's how you want to talk through it. It's the reciprocal of sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is going to be hypotenuse over opposite. If you get stuck, just put the 4 somewhere and put the 1 somewhere. A triangle only has 3 sides. There's only so much trouble you can get up to. Put them somewhere. Okay? Now you do have to do Pythagorean theorem in this case to get the other side. Do you want me to just call it x? Are we good with x? Okay. So x squared plus 1 squared equals 4 squared. That would be x squared plus 1 equals 16. You get square root of 15. And then you use this to answer the question. Do you remember me saying you can label the angle if you want to call that theta, or you can just leave it blank. We don't actually need to know what that is. We're going to do secant. Now I'll talk you through this nice and slow as well. Secant is the reciprocal of which one? Cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this would be hypotenuse over adjacent. So bless you. Using this picture, what would be hypotenuse over adjacent? 4 over square root. Good, you guys got it. 4 over square root of 15. And so it's going to be rational. Good, and you guys have a good vocabulary too. So you guys all worry about everything and then you're totally fine. And we're very high-performing class. All right, looking at this one. What quadrant are we going to need to be in since that's negative? 4, good. And again, there's only 4 quadrants, and you know it's not 3, so decide where you put them. Now, I'm not going to worry about the negative. I'm just going to place the numbers, then we'll decide what gets the negative. Cotangent is x over y, or adjacent over opposite, if you want to think of it that way. Which one gets the negative? 12, good. Now, if you remember, this is one of the locker combinations. It is 13. 5, 12, 13. Now, you can label theta if you want to, or just leave it blank. Now, we're going to do cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. All right. This one is a lot the same as the one right above it. I'm going to put the u over 1. You have to have something over something. I don't know what u is. So we're just going to assume it's positive and draw this in quadrant 1. Not going to complicate things. All right, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's how those get placed. U is opposite, 1 is adjacent. You can label this as theta if you want to, or just leave it blank. And we're going to do Pythagorean theorem to get the other side. And what you need to remember is do nothing. Leave it alone. Do not simplify. You can do 1 squared is 1, but like otherwise leave it alone. You're going to have 1 squared plus u squared equals, I put x, whatever you want to call it, squared. And then what would you do to get x alone? Square root. So it's square root of 1 plus u squared. But Miss Cole, can't we? No, you cannot. Leave it alone. This is like your work. Now we're going to answer the question. We want to do cosine. Cosine is what over what? You get adjacent over hypotenuse. And then you have to rationalize that, so it's going to look really weird. It's going to be square root of that stuff over that stuff. You can leave a 1 in there if you want to, but you don't need it. Okay, we'll try one more of those. I don't know what u is, so we're going to assume it's positive. Draw this in quadrant 1. Sine is what over what? Yep, opposite over hypotenuse. Good job. And then we're going to do Pythagorean theorem to get this side. I'm going to call it x. You can call it whatever you want. X squared plus 5 squared equals u squared. And then what would you do to start getting the x by itself? Yeah, subtract the 5 squared over 5 squared is 25. So u squared minus 25. And then what's your last step? Yeah, square root, and do nothing to it. Pretty please. Now, there is algebraically not anything that you can do to that. I promise. Do nothing. Now, see how I've been covering it up with my finger? I do that so we don't get distracted. Now I'm going to uncover that. We're going to do tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. And then you have to rationalize. I'm not going to say this out loud because it's going to be really annoying, but it's 5 square root of that stuff over that stuff. The word problems are actually the ones everybody ends up really liking. You get a calculator for these ones. What mode should your calculator be in? It's degrees. Okay, so let me share real quick and we'll make sure I'm in degrees. Radians is the default, so you do need to be careful. Let's see. Oh, I must have done this earlier and changed it to degrees. All right, so we're in degree mode. Oh, draw yourself a right triangle. Do you have an imagination? Yeah, good. Sure. Boat is being pulled in. The rope is 20 feet long. Which part is the rope? Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, the boat is out here. What is the angle of elevation? So that's your x. When the boat is 16 feet away, so 16 goes here. So sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine. Cosine x equals 16 over 20. And then how am I going to type that in? Inverse. All right, so I'm going to go to my functions. Cosine inverse, 16 over 20. Boom. 3 decimal points, the first 3 that you see, so it's 36.869. What are the units? Because they aren't feet. What? It is degrees. So you can put that degree symbol, or you can write the word degrees, but I will have to take off if you don't put units because it is a word problem. All right, let's try it again. All right, draw yourself a right triangle. Man is standing 22 meters away from a building. So where does the 22 go?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. 22 away. Good vocabulary. The building is 58 meters tall, so that building should be vertical, I hope. And we want, now it says angle of elevation. X goes right there. So sine, cosine, or tangent? Tangent. Good job. Opposite and adjacent. So tangent is opposite over adjacent, 58 over 22. So I'm going to share my screen, go back to my calculator. We want tangent inverse, 58, yeah, 8 over 22. There you go, 69.227 degrees. The units are going to be degrees for all of these. All right, last one, right triangle. A child is looking down at his friend from on top of a jungle gym. So he's up here. It says find the angle of depression. I don't care what that says. Where do you put X? The bottom of the triangle. The ground and the sky are parallel, alternate interior angles. All right, the jungle gym is 15 feet tall. So where does the 15? Yeah, vertical part. Now this part's kind of silly. I made up this problem, but math word problems are silly to begin with. I wanted to do one of each, a sine, cosine, and a tangent. So in order to make it sine, I said that he and his friend, like the one friend's on the jungle gym and the other one's down here, I said that they're 17 feet apart. I don't know why you would ever know that. Maybe they're like playing tug of war. Don't play tug of war while someone's on top of a jungle gym. That's a bad idea. But I was trying to get one of each of the 3 trig functions. So no, they make more sense on the test. I made this up. This was a no Miss Cole problem. You know what? I don't remember, to be honest. For a review, I try to do one of everything though. All right, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to type it in sine inverse. Get rid of that. what is it, 15/17? So 61.927 degrees.